What's up, ladies and gentlemen? SoCal Preston here. On September 20th of this year, I had a debate on the Apocrypha. Is the Apocrypha scripture? I took the affirmative. The books that we specifically focused on were Tobit, Sirach, and 2 Esdras, also known as 4 Esdras. And in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at some clips that I think are very, very important to look at and review because this debate, it was almost 4 hours long. It was very deep. There was a lot of stuff that we talked about, and it's just been 2 months since we had the debate, and I owe you and my interlocutor and others out there that are interested in this topic a full review. So with that said, let's get into it. All right, so like I said, the topic was about the Apocrypha, whether or not it is scripture. I asked my interlocutor, Turretin Fan, who has a YouTube channel by that name, if he would be willing to debate specifically Sirach, Tobit, and 2 Esdras, also known as 4 Esdras. Thankfully, he accepted that offer. And so basically the rules were simple. Our format of the for this debate was more of a Lincoln Douglas style debate. And if you want to know what type of debate that is, go ahead and look it up yourself. But I'll just let you know that's really what I always aim for when I have my debates. I really like that format. I was really pleased with the overall amount of views that it had, considering, what's an average view on Standing for Truth, with which hosted this debate. It's not as many views as some other channels sometimes get in regards to Christian debates, but I think the type of people and the caliber of people that come and watch these debates on his channel are just on another caliber and a very high level. So it's always an honor when I see a debate that I participate in do well overall on average for that those types of views on that channel. Also, I was very pleased that there was a watch party. Apocrypha Apocalypse hosted a watch party, which I was very thankful for. It was an honor and privilege. Apocrypha Apocalypse is run by 3 gentlemen, David Cesares and William Albrecht, who has his own channel, Patristic Pillars, and Gary Machuda, who is a well-known author in this space of the canon. All 3 of these men are Catholic, and so it was an honor and a privilege to have them host a watch party for this debate, considering also that I am a Protestant. So that was a huge, I guess you could say, way of showing people that you can still be in friendship and brotherly friendship with those on the other side, and that's one of the things I seek to display and show. So thank you so much to those who watched the debate, and also again thank you to Apocrypha Apocalypse for hosting the watch party, and thank you to Standing for Truth for hosting it. I've been debating on his channel for, I think I'd say, the past 3 years, and this debate really to me is like one of my most anticipated debates, because I think the conversation about the canon, specifically about the Deuterocanon / the Apocrypha, is, I think, the most important. And I want you to know that I don't want people to see this as a Catholic versus Protestant or anything like that. My focus is really focusing on what is the canon. All that to me is not the main topic that I'm focusing on, but specifically, I just want to know what the canon is. So it's really cool when I see that Catholics and even Protestants coming together and supporting me behind this endeavor. So really thank you to all you out there and supporters, and although those who challenge me. Now, my overall thoughts on the debate: I thought it was really, really good. I wouldn't say it was my number one debate overall. I'd say my actual number one debate. It was my first debate on the Apocrypha, which I also took the affirmative, which was against a gentleman by the name of Steve Christie. He's the author of Why Protestant Bibles Are Smaller, I believe. Yes. And so he was very well prepared. He was very engaged in the cross-ex, and I thought that he came very prepared. I could tell that he really studied my side. But that's not to say that Turretin Fan didn't do a great job, even though I placed that, second. But it's a tie. It's almost a tie, Turretin Fan, so don't worry about it. But of all my debates, these 2 debates that I focus on the Apocrypha have by far been my most rigorous, and the one that I have found the most pushback or I guess the word I'm using is the most challenged from. I think the other topics I discuss, I'll just be quite frank, I think I have a really good edge on those. This one is very unique because I take a position that today is not really taken by my side. Most Protestants, at least in the United States of America, do not hold to my position that the Apocrypha is Scripture. So I was very, pleased to see that Turretin fan was challenged me. He I thought did an overall really good job. There are some areas that I thought he could have done better at, and I will share a lot of constructive feedback in this video. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through clips of this debate. I will play the clip and then I will give you my feedback. I'll try to preempt you on what clip I'm about to share, and then we'll watch it, and then I'll give you my feedback, and then we'll move on to the next clip. So there's gonna be a lot of stuff, a lot of great information, a lot of things that you're gonna learn, and whether you believe the Apocrypha Scripture or not, you're gonna learn a lot. I think it's important that I do this because this is to me peer review. I do these debates not to try to convince anyone, believe it or not. I'm not trying to spread the truth or anything like that, even though obviously I think it's super important. To me, this is an opportunity to challenge my view, challenge my beliefs. This is my number one reason why I do what I do. And so when Turretin fan, someone like him of his caliber, accepts a debate in regards to the Apocrypha, that's very huge because Turretin fan, he has done a very good job of analyzing my previous works or my previous videos on the Apocrypha. He has done a very good job. He has actually made a couple of blog posts on it. So he's very focused on the details, and that means a lot to me, and that's an honor for someone to do that, to take your work and to break it down. I find that to be an honor, and I'm super thankful for that. So this to me, whether it's one or two people that watch this video, that's all that matters to me. This is something that when we're doing peer review work, I want to hand it back and say, hey, look, here's where I think I should have done better. Here's where I think my opponent should have done better, or kind of come to a place where, we can give constructive feedback and at the end of the day, walk away better and smarter and hopefully closer to the truth. So let's see here. Starting off, what I want to do is I got a lot of notes. I took a lot of notes. I mean, this is 2 months past the debate when we had a debate, excuse me. But I got a lot going on. There's a lot. I actually had these notes right here that you see right here. These were done probably about a month and a half ago, but things happen, but everything's good, by the way, nothing bad or anything like that. But finally, here I am. So it's time to get into it. But one of the things that I want to do before we get into the actual review debate, I wanted to share a clip from Turretin fan's channel. It's a clip of him reviewing my thoughts, or what I believed Coverdale believed about the Scripture. And the reason why I'm going to show this to you first, even though it's not part of the debate, is because I think it sets the tone of kind of how Turretin fan treats the rest of the topics that we discuss in debate. And you'll know what I'm talking about as we move forward. But I will play this clip for you, and then I'm gonna break it down. All right, so I'm gonna let him kind of explain what's going on in this critique of one of my beliefs about Coverdale, and then I'm going to show you what is actually going on. So let's go and take a look at it.
He says that Miles Coverdale claimed that Judith is Scripture. I mentioned before, this is the work, and you can see that this is written in the Almains by a right excellent and noble prince, and translated into English by Miles Coverdale, the defense of a certain poor Christian man. And that's where this text, which includes the reference to Judith, and then it says so it mentions a bunch of stories from the Bible, including the story of Moses and so forth. And then it mentions Susanna and Judith, which are not from the canonical scriptures, although they are from the scriptures more broadly. But you'll even see here also, translated out of Dutch into English by Miles Coverdale. And it's the year 1545 in the last of October. So October 31st on Halloween 1545, on Reformation Day 1545, he translated this work. And after all these things, it says, let's see, these and many more godly examples be left in the Holy Scriptures to the great comfort and consolation. Of course, this doesn't actually say that Judith is in the Scriptures or Susanna is in the Scriptures, but that's a reasonable way of looking at it, except, of course, it's not Miles Coverdale's own view. And, of course, it doesn't mean, just because a person calls it Scripture, doesn't mean that he thinks it's part of the words that are inspired by God, because Scripture is used more broadly in that time, as other people have pointed out.
Okay, so the gist of it is this, is that the work that I quoted from stating that Coverdale believed that Judith was Scripture, what Turretin fan is trying to explain to the audience is that I was actually quoting the work that Coverdale was translating, okay? And so that would mean that I'm actually wrong in saying that Coverdale was saying that Judith was Scripture. And then Turretin fan says, well, even if it was, or if, the meaning of Scripture even back then was different. I'm not going to get into that. But what I am going to focus on is this: is that Turretin fan is telling everyone that Coverdale those aren't his actual words. Those are the words of the book that he was translating. Now, check this out. I'm going to review that very book. So let's check it out. This is the work that T-Fan is referencing, and what I'm going to show you is that when I am saying that Coverdale is referencing Judith, that I am correct, and that T-Fan in stating that what Coverdale is actually doing is translating a work, and that what I cited was a translation of a work that Coverdale was translating, that is incorrect, and I'll show you. So let's go ahead and do this. So we just type in Judith, and this is what I was referencing right here. Let me close this. And here's the word Judith right there. So if we take a look, and I'll start here. Susanna was preserved and defended, pure and undefiled from the false priest and judges. Now that's another book. We're not going to talk about that. But Judith, with much joy and victory, was delivered from the fiery violence and mighty power of all the enemies of God. Listen to this. These and many more godly ensamples be left in the what? Holy Scriptures, to the great comfort and consolation of them that suffer persecution. Now, what he is going to try to say to you is that these words right here, okay, what's stated right here, is not Coverdale, but whoever was the author of that work that Coverdale was translating. And let me show you why that is 200% wrong, and that is actually Coverdale. So let me do this. I'm going to go to, we're on page 488. Let's go to the next page. And this is where it's very important because, well, let me go back. Actually, I don't think I can go to the front work. No, let me go back. I apologize. But if we go back, bear with me. So this right here, okay, look right here. So page top of 47 and previous pages, that is what was translated by Coverdale. But it's here a short recapitulation unto the reader. This is none other than Coverdale. So he translates over here, and then he gives a recap of what was just stated. Okay? That's what it was. And this is where T-Fan failed. So T-Fan, please, I would hope that you admit that you were wrong. This is Coverdale. I was not wrong. This is not a translation, but this is legit. Here's one way to also double check. Here hast thou heard, most gentle reader. All right, so let's just take this. Actually, let me just type it in. Whoops, excuse me. Let's type in gentle reader. Oh, look at this. Prologue, gentle reader. Okay. Gentle reader. So I must needs advise thee, most gentle reader. So this, if when you look, my point is when you take a look at it, all right, gentle reader. Again, that's a common phrase. Now for that part, most gentle reader. The point is going back to that quote, and I'll be quick, is right here when this is stated. This is none other than part of Coverdale's recap of what he just translated. Okay, and he clearly says that Judith is Holy Scripture. Now, what more evidence do you need? I don't know, but there it is. So, have fun. All right, there it is. What do you think? Whose words are those? Well, it's obvious that those are Coverdale's words. So when I said that Coverdale said this about Judith, it's accurate. So, I mean, what else do you want to know? Now, this doesn't mean that the Apocrypha is Scripture, nothing like that, but the reason I want to show this to you is because you're going to see this play out throughout the rest of this video on how Church and Fan handles these types of topics and subjects related to my arguments. So, the thing is with someone like, I'll just moving forward, I'm gonna say T-Fan. With T-Fan is, I expect a lot more because if you go to his blog, you'll see he's focused on the details. He's looking for the primary sources, and when I see him make this type of mistake, I'm like, oh, come on. And then all of a sudden, throughout this debate, you're gonna see it. You're gonna see a pattern. And I'm not saying this. This is not saying that Turretin Fan or T-Fan is not intelligent or anything. No, that's not the case at all. It's simply why. My question would be like, T-Fan, why are you doing that? Why don't you see what's clearly there? Is it something to do with the fact that you refuse to see the truth in that the Apocrypha throughout Protestant classical history has been viewed the way I've been trying to tell you and others about how it's been viewed, and that the evidence for it being Scripture is extremely strong? That's my question to you. Okay, so let's move on. The next clip we're going to take a look at is this is really small, but I really wanted to share it. But it's his thoughts on the KJV had a paragraph break, and I thought this was interesting. This is how it kind of started off. So let's check it out.
Okay, so the paragraph using the King James paragraph breaks starts at verse 8, and it says, "For you were sometimes darkness, but now are you light in the Lord, walk as children of light, for the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth, proving what is acceptable unto the Lord, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. For it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. But all things that are reproved are made manifest by the light, for whatsoever doth make manifest is light. Wherefore he says, Awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light." So you're saying that that what I've just read is not the full basis of the wherefore, but it's something beyond that, or
yes. And what are you using? David Norton's Paragraph Bible?
I'm using the Blue Letter Bible's electronic printing.
Yeah, that I'm what I'm seeing in my King James, which is the Cambridge, there is no paragraph break.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
So there you have it. And the reason why this was very important to me is because Turretin Fan is not actually, for whatever reason, he's not using his personal copy of the King James Bible. And in this debate, I thought that was something that should not have been something that he brought up as an issue about this paragraph break. And I'll actually show it to you right here. And this is right here. This is from Blue Letter Bible. And then I'll show you also what it looks like in my Bible. But in this type of debate, the details matter. We have to cross our T's and dot our I's. We have to be very ready in these types of debates. I think this is something that I was shocked to hear from T-Fan when he brought this up in the debate. So I was like, okay, maybe that's, I mean, all right, whatever, not a big deal. And that, again, this doesn't prove that I'm right, okay? But what it starts to show me is there's going to be a pattern. And so the next big thing that I had was he didn't know that Tobit was in the Old Testament in Aleph and B, okay? And in Aleph and B, that's Sinaiticus and Vaticanus. But that is something that shocked me, that he didn't know that they were part of the Old Testament. And what I mean by that is that they were intertwined within the Old Testament, okay? So I think I'll show it to you. I'll show it on the screen. What's Sinaiticus? You can go to Sinaiticus' website, and you could see clearly that it is intertwined. So if we were to take Sinaiticus of Vaticanus, which he holds in very high regard, they were somewhat the most similar to what we have right here. They're all condensed in a codex, and when you open them up, you'll see Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus, and so on and so on. And what you see is that these books, specifically like Sirach and Tobit, are in between and intermixed with what we would call what most traditionally today evangelical Western Protestant Christians would categorize as canonical. And so the fact that he didn't know that, I thought that was something that shocked me, because he's debated with KJV Onlyists, and one of the things that KJV Onlyists argue a lot is Sinaiticus Vaticanus, and so for someone like him not to be aware of that was a big shock to me. So that's, to me, again, these are things that are like come to work items. Like you need to know this. Now his response was a little shock to me, but let's go ahead and see what he has to say.
Both of those I don't recall the table of contents for both those manuscripts, and my argument didn't hinge on it, but they may well contain copies. I don't know. I don't recall the contents.
So they're interspread within the Old Testament, which would make one believe that if they're reading this specific book in that Bible, wouldn't they walk away thinking that they're reading inspired scripture, just like the book they read prior to Tobit or even after Tobit?
I think I now understand your question. So the answer to that is no. This may just be a book for liturgical reading in the church, not a book of explicitly only the inspired scripture. As I mentioned in my presentation, the churches began to read a mixture of inspired and non-inspired books.
What sources do you have that would suggest or prove that it was just for liturgical purposes? Are you saying both Vaticanus and Sinaiticus?
So the Council of Laodicea and Athanasius' Festal Letter are from approximately the same time as both of those manuscripts.
So you take them.
Go ahead.
So you take them to be around the 4th century, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I don't, by the way, for the record.
So there you have it. And for me to hear that these codexes were potentially viewed as only codexes for liturgical purposes, that was by no means a satisfactory answer. And on top of that, for me to ask for the sources that would support his position. And this is very important. And for those of you out here that may agree with my stance, specifically about the Deuterocanon / Apocrypha, you got to realize this is huge. So for when you're in a discussion with somebody trying to show them evidence that these books were held at the same level as the traditional canonical Old Testament books, you have to express to them that books like Sirach and Tobit were literally part of the Old Testament. And for someone to say, well, they're part of the liturgical purpose, I mean, maybe I haven't done enough research. Who knows? Again, these debates, I'm all about learning more and getting sharpened. But I've never heard that ever. I haven't heard that. And if I missed it while I was doing my research, that's on me. But still, though, I don't think he had a strong case there. I think it's very clear that the people who put together the codex that we now call Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus clearly believed that they were part of the Holy Scripture, the canon. and to say that they're for liturgical purposes without backing it up and showing us also some precedents for that with other codexes, I don't think that's the case. Now, someone may say, well, David, you realize that Sinaiticus had the Shepherd of Hermas in it or something like that. Well, yes, I understand that at the very end of it. But that's also, I will say this, that's not to say that the person or persons that produced that codex did not believe that they were scripture. So again, there's nowhere within those codexes that would imply that those specific books that I mentioned, Sirach and Tobit, were deemed or were only put there for liturgical purposes and not to be viewed as holy scripture. That's just to me, that's a huge stretch. Okay, so the next clip we're going to take a look at is, and I'm reading my notes here, is, and I'll just read. He showed poor debate prep. And this was huge. This was huge, and I have some notes. I'm going to review them with you after we check out this. Take a look at this clip. But let's go ahead and take a look at it.
In preparation for this debate, what books favoring my side have you personally read, and do you have them in your possession?
I have no idea how many books I've read, and I have plenty of books in favor of your position.
In favor of my position, what books have you read for this debate? Well, which one? Which one?
I mean, here's one that's just at hand. Gary Machuda has his book that I've talked about.
That book doesn't support. It's not pro Apocrypha scripture. Do you have what book do you have?
Is that Daniel Harrington, who's a Jesuit priest, is not in favor of your position?
No. Okay, hold the book up again. Okay, does that book support 2 Esdras as being inspired scripture?
Probably not. I don't recall the exact wording. Yeah.
So do you have any books in your possession that you've read in preparation for this debate that support my side?
Oh, that fully support your side on every point? Absolutely not. No.
Okay, let's just minus 2 Esdras. What about Baruch? And
so yeah, there's plenty of books. I'm questioning what's the significance of whether I've personally read books on the topic. But
can you name them?
So I can't name all the books that I've read on the topic. Yeah.
All right.
But I can give you an example. Gary Machuda has a book.
Have you read it?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of it?
I have both editions, the first and the second edition.
All right. So that was very revealing. Very, very revealing. Because to me, it displayed that T-Fan was truly not prepared to debate this this topic. He clearly wasn't. And I'm going to demonstrate that in just a second. And so when someone like myself, I on average research probably about 4 hours a day, at least. Like I literally research and eat at the same time. So I'm being very conservative. When I'm preparing for debate like this one, I'm easily researching and studying and prepping 8 hours a day. Literally. This is what I do. I multitask. I multitask. Ask my family. Trust me. It's what you have to do. It's what I love to do too. Not everyone has to do it. But when I am doing this, I am trying to see where he's coming from, because do I have to explain things to him? Does he understand what I'm even talking about? And it's not like I'm trying to, just show like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just ignorant. No, I'm really trying to see like, well, if he's not aware of these arguments, and if he doesn't really show that then I'm not going to bring up certain arguments to him, because I think it's a waste of time. Like I had a deck with multiple slides that, because of the way he responded to me, I said, there's no point in me bringing it up. I'm not even going to show these slides, and I'm not even going to do that, because if I didn't show any slides in this debate. Yet I had a deck that, even if you watched Donnie, he pulled it up, and maybe I did show. No, I don't think so. No, I said no, never mind. Because I'm like, T-Fan's not showing me that he's truly researched, so I'm not going to engage with him in these arguments. So, anyways, let's talk about Daniel Harrington, and this is somebody that he said, there's 2 books. He mentioned Daniel Harrington, okay. And he mentioned Gary Machuda, and I believe this is the book that he's probably referencing, Why Catholic Bible is Better, or The Case for a Deuterocanon, which the Case for a Deuterocanon I don't have anymore, but that was the first book I read by Gary, which was probably by 10 years ago by now. Anyways, so let's talk about Daniel J. Harrington. What's up with Daniel Jesuit Harrington? This was one of the books that T-Fan said that he read to prepare for this debate, and actually supported my side in regards to the Deuterocanon minus 4 Esdras / 2 Esdras. Now I'm aware of this book. This is a hard copy book that I got from the Library of UCSD, and so this is not the one I actually had before. I have an electronic copy. One of my friends, the Layman Seminary, he actually sent me an electronic copy a while ago, maybe a year or so ago. Anyways, but when I looked over it, I remember when he brought that up, I was like, the book didn't. There was no alarms that went off, and I wish I would have been more ready to answer to that book. But this book is a basically introduction to the Apocrypha for every book. And what's interesting is, why would a Jesuit even say the Apocrypha and not like Deuterocanon? You know, that's for me. I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But when you read this book, it's just simply an introduction. He is not defending or attacking per se the books. He does take a very liberal view. So a lot of Catholics who uphold the Deuterocanon as scripture would disagree with some things that he has to say in here. But it's really just an introduction for every book, and kind of giving you a side story, maybe telling you like, this is what modern scholars think the date of the book is and how old it is, and this is the main story. But it's not really attacking anything. Again, it's an introduction. So for him to say what he said about this book, I was a little shocked, especially when it came to 2 Esdras / 4 Esdras. Now the big one, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything on my notes, is this one. Is when he said that he studied this book. And I didn't see really any evidence in this debate for it. And there's going to be another gentleman that we'll discuss later, is when I mentioned Whitgift. In the debate, he was not aware of Whitgift, even though in previous interactions with T-Fan, I'll show it for you to see. I'll show the receipts, if you will. I've brought up Whitgift and showing him as a very important figure to support my case, specifically within classical Protestantism, and for him to not show any evidence that he was truly aware of him during this debate specifically showed me that he wasn't ready. And the reason I mention that is because Whitgift is mentioned in this book, and that's and then previously before this debate, I brought it up to him again, and then there was really no rebuttal or anything really that showed me that he studied, from what I gathered, this book. And for him to suggest that he can't remember everything he's read, and look at all the books behind me, I mean, I'm just sitting there, I'm thinking he doesn't even know who Whitgift is, even though I have mentioned to him in our interactions in the past. And since he's also claiming to have read this book, and Whitgift is the Archbishop of Canterbury, that's a pretty big red flag for me, for him to suggest that he read these books. And what I mean by read, I'm talking about from cover to cover and study them. Okay, that's what I mean by read. Okay, that's what I mean, that you've actually thoroughly studied them, and you've, if I ask you a question about a certain book, like if you're in a class and your teacher asks you a specific question about a book that you're supposed to be reading, if you're not able to answer a few questions that are related to the book, the teacher's just going to conclude you didn't read the book, and they're not going to care if you read page 1 and that's it. They're going to be like, you just didn't read the book. So hopefully out there you get what I'm saying. Now, I'm going to get into Whitgift a little later, because in a response video post-debate Turton fan made about Whitgift, he suggested that I misled the audience, and so I'm looking forward to discussing that later on in this video. Okay, so the next clip we're going to take a look at is, let me see here. He was not aware, and I'm putting here, he was not aware of Codex 248, yet it was in the preface. I'll just wait right there. Let's just go ahead and check out that clip. So let's see here. Codex 248.
No,
are you aware?
Are you aware
of Codex Vaticanus 248?
Codex Vaticanus 248.
Are you aware? Yes or no?
I'm not aware of.
Have you read?
All right, so there you have it. So the reason why I was disappointed that he didn't know that he wasn't aware of Codex 248 is because he attacked Sirach 13. All right, he attacked the verses I use, simply stating that those verses were not in the original, and therefore Paul could never have quoted them. Well, Codex 248 supports my text, and what he uses as his evidence is he cites from the New English translation of Septuagint, Nets, and in the translation of Sirach, in the preface for Sirach or Ecclesiasticus, it mentions 248, and I think even in an earlier introduction too, I believe. But either way, in the book, in the translation Nets that he claimed to have read and studied and got his information from, and actually he does show evidence of that in his blog post that he did on critiquing one of my videos. Yet he's claiming that he doesn't know what Codex 248 is, yet it's mentioned in that work that he's citing from to be critical of my verse. So again, I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. What's going on here? Like, do I really want to pull out my arsenal? Do I really want to just go at it with somebody that I'm just seeing in my cross-ex that is just not, in my opinion, prepared to really discuss the meat and potatoes of this topic? So I hope you know where I'm coming from. But for him not to be aware of Codex 248, which is significant because he knew that Sirach 13 verses 14 through 15 or 13 through 15, or I forget which one, I'm sorry, it were key to my debate because I was trying to show in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 14, 15, that Paul was citing them as Holy Scripture. So for him to not be aware of that was disappointing. It was very disappointing. And so the other thing too, and I want to see if my notes say anything about this. No, is let me see here. Yeah, I don't actually have notes on this, but I'm going to go ahead and share it. Is that I didn't see him being genuine or in good faith when it came to, or I would say the word. Maybe that's not a good way to put it. I did not see that he did a good job at looking at the other side. And when I brought up in the debate about what does the footnotes say in his translation, the Nets, specifically about the verses that are supposedly missing, I had to get him to point out that it's lacking Greek authority or GK. He's like, GK, and I'm like, man, we know it means Greek. Okay, just say Greek. But I pointed out later too that that's not true, and that this verse that I'm referencing in Sirach chapter 13 does have Greek authority. It does, and it not only has Greek authority, it has other ancient languages authorities, Latin especially. So, and that's a whole other story. But the point is that does it have ancient authority? Yes, it does. So the footnote in Nets is dishonest. It's not only dishonest; it's just plain straight up wrong. And Turrington fan was not aware of Codex 248, so we can't even engage it, or he's not even acknowledging it. And at that point, I'm just thinking like, okay, am I just wasting my time now? So, anyways, the next one we're gonna get into the list, and so the thing I put here, I'll read my note. He was not aware of the views of the early church fathers on 2 Esdras, and it being inspired. So I was a little shocked. Let me see here. I want to make sure I'm not skipping. I might be skipping. So let's go ahead. You know what? Let's just go on to the next one. Let's see what.
Let's say what you just said. Let's go back to quotations of the Apocrypha in the New Testament. You said you don't have a list. Do you have Alon Nessel's 27th edition with you next to you anywhere?
I have, I think, the 26th on the shelf and some others.
You have the 27th,
online.
I'm pretty sure, because I was watching your debate with Will Kinney. And so the reason why I'm bringing that,
right. Actually, you're right. You're right.
I know I'm right. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because did you know that in page 800 to I think 804 that the editors have a very large list of verses that they are saying that are either direct quotations or perhaps even alluded to from the Apocrypha to the New Testament. Are you aware of that list?
It's news to me, but I accept your idea. Yeah.
I recommend that you take time to study those pages, and I'm actually giving them to you, page 800.
So sorry, that's I got a little ahead of myself. So let's go back to the list. And he said that was news to him, that the 27th edition, which I had to remind him he had, I have to remind him of what books he has. And so he's not aware, yet Steve Christie is the one who actually made me aware of it in his discussions about the Apocrypha. He had actually an opportunity to present his case on Standing for Truth. And he shared his decks, and on his decks, that's where, he actually had. And actually, I think I did a super chat, and I asked him, and I believe he brought up the list again in the debate that him and I had. But he didn't actually show the list. I think he might have referenced where it was at, or maybe not. It was definitely in the interaction I had with him when he was presenting on Standing for Truth. Alone, not between him and I. But I'm bringing that up is because I don't see any evidence of him trying to look at even like where we're coming from and doing his deep research on where are we going to show that there are verses in the Apocrypha that are being quoted in the New Testament. And he's going to say that, well, I read this book and they're in here. I'm thinking there's no evidence that you've actually really read this book, studied it thoroughly. And so when I got to the 27th edition of Nestle Aland, and him, which I was not surprised, I was actually expecting him to say that he's never read it or looked at it. It's on page 800, by the way, if you want to take a look at it. It's like 800 to 803, 804. And that list, while it is comprehensive, I don't actually agree with a lot of the verses there. My point in just saying that is that in the Greek New Testament that he has, which he actually showed during debate, which I brought up in this clip I just showed with Will Kinney, is that is somewhere where you can look and you can dissect and take a look at it. And what I'm seeing more and more is like they don't even take time to look at the other side. They don't do their research. They're not trying to sit. There's no evidence of that, and that's very disappointing. I've done plenty of research on the other side. I mean, I have Steve's book behind me, and others. I mean, most of the literature out there when I'm trying to research this topic is against my position. So, when I see someone like T-Fan not showing me any evidence that he's prepared for this debate, I'm a little I'm a little disappointed, and then throughout the debate, I started getting more and more disappointed. All right, so now we're going to get to 2 Esdras. This is where it comes to 2 Esdras. So I'm going to let the clip speak for itself, and then I'll go ahead and give you my thoughts afterwards. Are you aware of any?
Those are two slightly different questions. That Ezra was a prophet, certainly. Irenaeus, I think, is one of the people who seems to accept the account of the second Esdras as if it's a historical account.
Are you aware of anybody else?
I recall reading that, or hearing one or the other, that multiple church fathers thought that second Esdras account was a historical account of, especially this recreation of the scriptures, which is yet another confirmation, if it were true, of the short canon. But that's another.
So are you aware that it is said that as far as the second book, that the testimonies as far as it being scripture, Irenaeus, Tertullian, Clement of Alexandria, Basil, Chrysostom, are you aware? And even Ambrose, especially Ambrose.
That's now Ambrose is one who uses.
Wait, Territon fan. I said, are you aware? And then you can explain.
Yes.
Okay.
I've heard this kind of
so
thing.
So you didn't mention Ambrose. Why didn't you mention Ambrose?
I'm sorry?
You didn't mention Ambrose. Why didn't you mention him? Did you know about him? Are you familiar with his use of 2 Esdras?
I'm familiar that he is regarded as one of the people who most uses that book.
As what, though? As scripture.
You say as scripture. Whether it's as scripture or not, I leave for another topic.
And the reason why he would leave to another topic is because he wasn't prepared to discuss the topic. And so for me to just come up with a list of early church fathers anti and post Nicaea church fathers, I just didn't think it was. It's at that point I was like, nah, let's move on. There's no point because he's not aware. He hasn't done the research. He hasn't dug deep. I mean, I have close by me. I have Ambrose's work. I think Dying Good. I forget which one. But he is he is 100% utilizing 2 Esdras/4 Esdras as holy divine scripture. There's no question about that. And not only does Ambrose use 2 Esdras as, and here on out I'm just going to say 2 Esdras. Not only does he use, he's not the only one, but numerous others use 2 Esdras, and as I mentioned in this clip. And when I am debating this specific topic about 3 books, it was just 3 books. So I made sure that we honed in on 3, not the whole package. I wanted to really have an opportunity to focus on just a handful, and that I thought that would benefit both of us. And so for him to show clearly that he was not aware of the others that cited it as scripture, and then to go on and say, well, that's to be debated. I mean, I'm thinking, T-Fan, you cannot demonstrate to me that you have studied the early church fathers' use of 2 Esdras. You cannot. So moving forward, for me to go in and go deeper in this, to me, I think would just be a complete waste of time. So that's kind of like where I left it, and that's why I didn't want to move forward. But again, it's just showing me and the audience that he just was not prepared to discuss this topic or defend it. And so I was definitely disappointed. Okay, so I got, let me see, I got a few more things I want to make sure I touch base before I move on, because there's a few things that I put right here as notes, some bonuses. Yeah, I think I'm going to say this. Yeah, so something about our interaction, our interactions I thought were interesting. They were different. I think the way T-Fan debated me was much different than he's debated others in the past. And one of the things that was, or there was a few things that were different. One, William Albrecht, when he was on Apocrypha Apocalypse, when he was participating in the watch party with Gary, he himself even admitted, like, hey, this is different. And I think I might be able to play the clip for you. So there it is. So the thing is that this is a debate that I thought that either I got under his skin, he couldn't handle it, or I don't know. I mean, but he really, I thought, debated me much different than he's debated other opponents. And one of the biggest proofs of this was at the very end. Now, this debate had 0 interruptions from the moderator. Donnie could have gone out to eat and lifted weights and then come back 3.5 hours later or something, or 4 hours later, and it would have been fine. And so as far as moderating goes, it was super easy for Donnie, and there was nothing he had to engage in except to just help us move on to the next part of the debate. Now, at the very end, I interjected when we had not closing statements, but kind of like last words. The debate was already over. We were almost at 4 hours at that point. Our closing statements are 5 minutes each, and we go at it, and then we go into Q&A, and then usually Donnie gives both participants an opportunity to give some last words, and those last words are not closing statements. They're like, thank you, T-Fan. Thank you, Donnie. I appreciate you. Thank you, audience. This is good. This was a rough topic or something like that. Or they're not meant to be used as closing statements or attack on the other person at all, or their arguments. And so I know this very well because there was a debate that I had a couple years ago with a gentleman by the name of Matt First. And Donnie actually held the closing statements, the actual closing statements, the 5-minute closing statements, to the very end. So I was like, okay, fine. So we went into Q&A, and then I'm like, I already got my closing statement ready. I'm ready to roll. And Donnie was like, all right, so let's hand it off. And I had the last word. So I had the last word in my closing statement, and it was like, boom, like it was a knockout. and definitely, changed the tone of the debate because, well, it was my closing statement, and that's how we did it. So technically and officially, I wasn't out of line. I was perfectly allowed to do what I did, but to the viewer, it might have been like, whoa, that's a weird way to end the debate. Okay, that was a one-off, if you will. So I do my best, as always, to make sure that when Donnie says, all right, guys, any last words, anything like that, take it away. I thanked everybody. I said, Turretin fan, thank you, yada, yada, yada. And then Turretin fan had the last word. And this was I think his third closing, where he had the third or second where it was it ended on him. And so, because I had affirmative too, but there was 2 other times before that where it was okay, you got the last word, but whatever, it's all good. And this time, for the last, he had the very last word, and he took that time to start attacking my position again and getting into territory that I thought was okay, you've just demonstrated to me that you really, really lost this debate. And, this is out of character for you, or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm that type of person that could show people who you really are. And I don't say that in a bad way, but I have been known to do that. But regardless, that was very out of character for T-Fan to do that. And if you look at all his other debates prior to the debate that him and I had, he ends the debates exactly like you're supposed to. When Donnie says, here you guys go, what's your last words? Thank you, yada, yada. But me, nothing. And so what I did is I stepped in. I'm like, hey, what is this, a second closing argument or closing statement? I went in there and I was like, because at that point I was like, dude, no way, man. You cannot do that. And it was whoa. It was I could tell he was kind of shocked, obviously. And Donnie was whoa. Okay, let's change the tone. Let's go back. But Donnie, I think you know where I'm coming from.
Didn't buy the 4th book argument that they heard today, but did think that I somehow lost on the other 3. To examine why
is this a closing argument?
I didn't interrupt you, dude.
Turretin fan, feel free to finish your thoughts.
Aside from that, everything else was I thought was excellent. But I'm glad that T-Fan did that, because what he did at the end of the day is he really showed myself and the audience that he did not win at all. He lost big time, and that showed in the way he ended things. So I just really want to point that out. Sorry, I was a little long-winded, but this is it's all about being thorough. And when you have a 4-hour-long debate, there's a lot to talk about. All right, so the next big one is the meaning of Apocrypha. Yes, the meaning of Apocrypha. Let's go ahead and see what T-Fan has to say.
The definition of Apocrypha. Who did you cite? Who is that gentleman?
Robert Crawdry.
Okay. Were you listening to me when I was telling you about the Catholic Han?
I was trying my best to listen.
So let me ask you again. Were you listening to me?
That's a yes.
What did I say?
I didn't memorize everything you said.
Okay. Well, I could tell you this, that the definition I gave to you was that the meaning of it is hidden. Did you listen to me? Did you listen to what I said about King James, about how he used the word Apocrypha?
Yep.
And the way he used it, we know that it doesn't agree with the definition you gave. Why would the King of England, the one who authorized? Okay, I'm wrong about that. So let me just read it for you. Okay, just so you understand. All right.
Go ahead.
So King James, give me a second. Give me a second. I'm going to get this. Let's do this. Actually, no, let's do William Winston first. So William Winston says the prophet of the book of the prophet Ezra seems to have been composed in 2 parts and have been engraved upon 94 final boxes tables, of which 24 were open or canonical, and 70 concealed or apocryphal, which distinction was imitated by St. John in his Revelation. So he is likening the apocryphal books to what John did. Let me ask you, does he agree with the definition that you shared with everybody?
He's not trying to tell you what's the definition of
yes
Apocrypha.
or no. Yes or no. Yes or no.
So the reason that that's not a yes or no question is that my comment was about the meaning in 1611, And your comment is about the meaning, or what you cited is about a meaning in a book that was
So
written
let's
many
get this
centuries
straight.
earlier.
Let's
Go
get
ahead.
this straight. Whitgift said that the Apocrypha was scripture, correct?
Whitgift didn't say that the you're talking about a dialogue that you
You
quoted
don't
in your
know.
presentation. And
Okay.
that one that you presented, it sounded
So-
as though he's saying it's scripture.
Okay. All right. So let's suppose I'm telling you the truth, which I am. Do you think his use of the word Apocrypha agrees with the way you're communicating it to the audience?
I'm not suggesting that Whitgift's view of the Apocrypha and mine are the same.
Okay. Now, let's go back to William Winston. So what I'm understanding about Winston, when he says concealed or apocryphal, what you're saying is that that's William Winston. He's in the 1700s. I'm talking about 1611.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he's talking about a document written many centuries before, and he's saying what the word meant in that document many centuries before. He's not saying what the word meant in 1611.
Okay. So just so that you know, and so the audience takes record of this, Mr. Winston.
I hope it's going to be in the form of a question, not a rebuttal.
No. Mr. Winston, he believed that 2 Esdras was scripture. And he uses the word apocryphal or apocrypha in the sense that I'm using it. Okay, let's go back to Coverdell. Okay.
All right. Now, some of you watching this, I know some of you are like, it's such a waste. Like, why would you even discuss this? So first things first, you got to understand this. This is the second debate that I know of on earth that a Protestant, if you will, debates another Protestant in regards to the Apocrypha, holding the affirmative that the Apocrypha is scripture. If anyone out there has knowledge of another debate like this, anywhere on earth, whether it be in India or China, I don't know, wherever, please let me know, okay? And for me, there's two big reasons why I stress the need to understand this word. And I'm going to get in deeper to what was discussed in this clip in just a second. First off, we got to know the original intent, period. It's all about original intent. So during that time, how was the word used? How did those that used it use it? We got to know the original intent, period. All right? And T-Fan did a good job in the beginning by utilizing I would say, maybe not so, probably a not well-known dictionary, okay? But the thing about this dictionary is that it still supported me, but the way he used it, I thought was just not very honest. And here's the thing. There's two things about that dictionary that he used, and I think I'll show you another clip in just a second in regards to this conversation. But the thing is this, is that one, the dictionary specifically focused on words that were archaic. Ladies and gentlemen, the word apocrypha has been a challenging word for over 1,000+ years. All right. So people have struggled with this word. And, I'm glad that he brought up that dictionary because the dictionary focused specifically on archaic words. And so it just goes to show you that even then people were considered it like out of date or archaic, if you will, or just, there's multiple definitions that we have to understand. And one of those definitions was not of authority, yes. But one of the definitions within that dictionary that T-Fan shared was hidden. And so that's what I continue to stress because I believe the original intent of the authors or the translators, of the King James Bible and those who preceded them, specifically the major English translations that preceded them, support my use of that word in its true original intent in very first definition, which is hidden or concealed, and not trying to say is not of authority in the way that T-Fan was trying to utilize it. And this word is a stumbling block. I know many Catholics will be watching this, and you're going to be like, nah, the Apocrypha is the wrong word. You got to use Deuterocanon. And I'm not going to get in the word Deuterocanon because I do have things about the word Deuterocanon where I could be like, well, it actually can go both ways now. Because if you study the history behind Deuterocanon, the very word, which I'll get into later, I'm going to make a video on that, and it's just about educating everyone. One can maybe come up with the same type of arguments. But ultimately, it comes down to this, is that this is one, we got to know the original intent, and two, it's a stumbling block. And what I'm trying to do, okay, throughout these debates, I'm playing the long game, everybody. This is not the first debate, or first or second. It's not the last debate. This is only the beginning, okay? Is that I'm trying to educate everyone on these words and definitions. Definitions matter. You must define. You must define. So therefore, when I see this as a stumbling block for both sides, I think it's a stumbling block for both sides. Those who believe it's scripture and those who don't. And so when I use the word Apocrypha, I don't want Catholics to cringe. I don't want them like, oh, like I don't like that word, or I don't like that. If anything, when you hear the word Apocrypha from me, that I'm referencing the 14 books that would include 1, 2 Esdras, and Prayer Manasseh. Okay, that's if anything. But if I call Sirach Apocrypha, I don't want you to think like we are basically being trained to think today. I'm trying to get everyone to go back to the original intent. In fact, if you take a look at the Dewey Reams, and I'll show this on the screen so you can take a look at him, look at those definitions, you see them right there. Clearly, you could see that even in the Dewey Reams there is a desire or need to try to clarify the meaning of the word, okay? So all the way back then, and that's the 1610 Dewey Reams I just showed you. So this is very important. And also, when I went back to the Catholicon, which is one of the earliest, I think the earliest Latin lexicon/dictionary, the very first definition it focuses on, and I'll show it on the screen for you to take a look at. And I'm not pretending to be, and I don't pretend to even know Latin, but I can decipher and I can then move into a translator. Hidden is the primary definition of this word. And so what I'm trying to express to everyone is simply that it has multiple definitions, but the primary definition is a positive definition. It's not a negative definition. It's not in any, like the word Apocrypha shouldn't, if it says Apocrypha on on both sides of the page in the King James Bible, when it comes to Sirach and other books called Apocrypha, that's not to say that those are not of authority. No, by no means. In fact, and I plan on doing this in the future, is going way more in depth into the word and how it's pretty cool, pretty radical, if you will, how it's used. But it's simply, I believe that it just implies it's closed scripture. And in Coverdale, in the preface to the Apocrypha, in his edition, he calls it, and really what he's doing, he's taking another preface and he's applying it and he's translating the English into, and he's putting it into his. And it's from I believe it's from the French Leviton, where he takes it and then he translates it into English. But I take that as his words in a sense, because it's his Bible, and so he is endorsing it. And what it says is open scripture. Okay, and so that's what I see. What I think people need to see is that to them you had the open scripture and then you had the closed scripture. You had the concealed scripture. Now, why is it concealed or whatever? But the point is it's scripture, and that's what I'm trying to get across to everyone. Whitgift and Travers, I mentioned about Whitgift, and he was not aware of that. He just wasn't capable of debating that, and I'm going to get into Whitgift later, so I'm not going to continue there. I mentioned the Dewey Reams. I showed that to you on screen, kind of what the definitions they showed there. Also, and this is the Synod of Dort, which took place in the 1620s. They would agree with me. They would also define Apocrypha as concealed. And by the way, in regards to the Synod of Dort, as I'm going to go a little off track here, I could see much of what was said in the Synod of Dort, in the summary of it, that it seems like that's where a lot of what Tim Fan holds to in regards to his views of, what is scripture and what's not and how to view it. I think a lot of it takes birth there and root there, because when you read the summary of the Synod of Dort from what they wrote, I mean, it was almost as like T-Fan read it. So I'm wondering if T-Fan actually read that. And then lastly, in regards to Whiston, Whiston, when he wrote that, it was in the 1700s. But my point is I believe he was sticking to the original intent of how that word was used. That was my point in regards to that. So let's take a look at another video related to the Apocrypha.
This is one of the central points of this debate. What you'll see there is that a dictionary definition is provided from 1604, and that dictionary continued to come out And the 1617 edition has the same definition. And that definition, of course, is not of authority. And there's also a thing hidden whose original is not known. That's true. And that's the question is, where did this come from? That it's hidden in that sense of origin. We don't know who wrote the book of Baruch. We know it wasn't Baruch. We don't know who wrote the book of Second Esdras in this side of Christ's incarnation, which is when it was composed. But we know it wasn't Ezra. These are books that are Apocrypha because they lack authority. That's the reason the warning is there in the 1611, and we are wise to heed that warning.
So there is where he emphasized all definitions, okay, in regards to what was said in that dictionary. And now this is a dictionary, and again, the dictionary focuses on archaic words, and it listed them, okay, in order. But I thought definitely the man who made that dictionary, by putting a thing hidden second, if Church fans wants to say, oh, see, it's ranked second, I would be surprised if that's what the original author of that dictionary, if that's what he intended you to walk away with thinking about that word. But regardless, the original usage of that word was a thing hidden. And because T-Fan is not well researched in this area, he stated that is because that word, a thing hidden, is because it wasn't known who wrote this specific book. That is not true at all. I'm not going to take time in this video to go deeper into the Apocrypha. That's going to be saved for another video. I have a lot of great information. Like I said, I study on average 4 hours plus a day, and I have so much information, and the hardest thing is to get it out to you because, I mean, there's just so much. I'm at a point, I'm well past where I was, years ago, but I'm at a point in my life where I want to make sure that the amount of information that I've learned, that when I deliver it, I don't have to go back and edit it again. I'm always going to be satisfied with it. And that's maybe a blessing and a curse, but because it could take a while, and I want to speed things up because I want to educate people, and I want to get the truth out there. And I'm also, aware that a lot of people, depending on how you make a video, they're gonna watch it. And so I'm trying to work with everybody. So bear with me on that because, I wish I had somebody else editing for me and doing all that, but I don't. You gotta do it all on your own, and still do what you do, everything else I do. All right, so now we're gonna get into what I call the Sirach debacle blunder. Let's just go ahead and play a clip, and then I'll give you my thoughts.
Because going from a tiny sample of one or two people to
one or two, who? Where did you get that from?
The citations that Rabbi Hertz is referring to are one or two citations in rabbinic literature.
Okay, you just said the citations that he's saying. How do you know that? Where did you get that evidence from?
From looking in the rabbinic literature.
Have you even gone to Jewish Encyclopedia and checked for yourself?
Of course, but
and you're
really
saying it says one or two. Wait, no. What you're saying, it's one or two. But don't you think it's appropriate for us to try to establish whether or not early Jews thought Sirach was scripture?
I think that burden is on you to establish that if you want to establish that.
I just established it, and you disagreed. You literally disagreed in front of everybody that Jews believe Sirach was scripture. That's all I got. I'm good, Donnie. All right, so this one was, I think, the turning point in the debate. 100%. One, I already had this conversation. I already interacted with T-Fan prior to this debate on where I stood about this. So on his channel, I brought it up to him, and I maybe also in the debate that he had with David and William. So this none of this should have been a surprise, okay? And I know for a fact he doesn't have Joseph Hertz's. Well, actually, he edited the Jewish Daily Prayer book, which I have behind me. And so this to me was where ultimately, like I said, I think everything turned, and that's why I was like, it's done. Because to me, I felt like, hey, look, I've demonstrated clearly what he's asking for, and I'll just read you my notes on this specific section that I'm reviewing. And I said, in regards to let me see. I said during my opening that Rabbi Hertz said Sirach was several times quoted in rabbinical literature as if it were part of Scripture, and that's it. Like that's what Hertz stated. Rabbi Hertz stated. He said that it's several times quoted in rabbinical literature as if it were part of Scripture. Okay, and then I'm putting here. I'm just going to read. During my cross-ex, I asked him about Sirach. He said something sample. So I can't. He said sample of one or two people said it. It was Scripture. So that there it is. So that was where I was like really shocked, because I already told him what I expressed during the debate prior to this debate, and he wasn't ready. And Mr. Rabbi Hertz actually never provided any sources. Like, that was just his quote. My backing was the Jewish Encyclopedia. Okay, and so I asked him. I asked him if he read the Jewish Encyclopedia to check on Sirach, and he said he did. So I thought I ended on a very strong note, extremely strong note, and I hope both sides right now are listening to me, because this next clip I'm going to show you is really, it's going to point out, I thought, again, going back to what I said earlier about showing either his true self or he's out of character, but the way he debated me, the way he kind of navigated through some of my questions, I was very disappointed. And it was a high point for me, but a very low point for T-Fan. And I hope you get this, because here's the gist of it all. Okay, before we move on to the next clip, we're still related to the same topic. Is that I provided sources. This is one or two, and I showed him. Wait a minute. And I quoted Sirach. Sorry, I quoted Rabbi Hertz stating that there were several times quoted as rabbinical literature as if it were part of Scripture. Several. Okay? And he's like, well, one or two. And I'm like, one or two? Really? One or two? And I point out to him that that's not true. Okay? And so when it comes time for the cross-ex, he's going to come back to me, and I'm glad he did this, and I was ready. So you know what? Let's just go ahead and play it.
Thanks very much. So, you brought up Rabbi Hertz. How many people how many ancient Jewish people does Hertz point to?
He actually points to in this edition. He points to one. He points to Rabbi Akiba, but not Rabbi Akiba. Excuse me, Rabbi Levitas from going back to around the time of Jamnia. And even though he doesn't specifically give you any more, what I did is I went to the Jewish Encyclopedia and found numerous other evidences of not just one, not just two, but more than that. So I think that's enough for me.
So who are some of the other ones that you found on Jewish Encyclopedia?
Let me look. Give me a second. Let's see here. I don't want to waste your time. So if you want to ask me another question, go for it. And I'll look. I'm looking it up for right now. If you have it up, show it. But yeah, keep going. I'm looking. I'm scrolling right now.
Remember what I said. If you haven't,
want to ask me another question while I'm looking.
Remember that.
No, you made a claim, and as you said, Hertz only has one, so I'm waiting to hear who the other ones are.
Give me a second.
All right. Okay, so he's waiting. He's waiting for me to pull up sources, and I told him, "Hold up." I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Okay." Like I'm like, here's the thing. I have them. I know exactly where to go, but I got to scroll to that right part of the page, and for whatever reason, I'm multitasking. I'm like, okay, I don't want to waste time, so let's go ahead and move forward with the cross-ex, and I promise you I'm going to pull it up. Okay, how does that sound? Like that's my goal. I'm doing my best not to stall, and I thought there's a lot of times he was sporting it out. He was trying to stall. I just don't think he was really there was like really nothing to grab onto with him a lot of times. And I wanted him to grab onto something with me, so I'm like, hey, let's go, let's move forward. I don't want to delay anything. That's showing a great sign of respect, and I don't want to delay anything. So let's go. But I'll get you your answer. And remember, he is, claiming that, like, hey, well, show me what you're talking about. Okay. So in this next clip, give me a second. In regards to the Jewish sources, we're going to find out something ultimately. And again, it's going to really expose, I really think, who T-Fan really was in this debate. But the thing is this, and I'll read you my notes. T-Fan began his cross-ex by going straight into the challenging me on my sources for Sirach. And then he asked, who are my other sources from the Jewish Encyclopedia, since I said there were more than 2, okay? And I couldn't find 2. It took me 2 minutes, okay? There was 2 minutes of literally wasted time, okay? All right? I was just like, okay, man, like, I was getting, like, it was like awkward. I was like, dude, like, let's go. Like, and like, I don't want to waste your time, man. Like, keep grilling me. And you can clearly tell that I'm continually searching for that on the page that I'm on already. And it turns out that he reveals that he already had the page up. And I'm thinking, like, okay, bro, how is that Christian? How is that cool, if you will, to use my terminology from where I'm from? Anyways, let's go to the next clip related to this topic, Jewish sources.
By name in a Sanhedrin. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, you can go to Jewish Encyclopedia right now. As you're watching this live, you can go and check it out yourself. Just type in Sirach and you can see it. And just scroll down to the section where it says popularity among the Jews. And there it is.
So the part you're reading it says...
Right here.
Curiously enough, the book retained its popularity among the Jews despite its exclusion from the canon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was cited at a very early period. The book of Tobit reproduces a number of passages word for word, while the book of Enoch, the Psalms of Solomon, and even the Talmud, the Midrashim, the Derek Erez, and similar productions show decided traces of its influence. With the last named work, it has many points in common, and it is frequently quoted in the Talmud. Passages from it are introduced by the formula reserved for the biblical writings, and then there's 3 citations you've mentioned as the first set of 3, and 1 verse is even referred to as if it belonged to the Hagiographa, and that's that other citation you mentioned, right?
Yep.
And then you say it's cited, it goes on to say it's cited by name in another place.
I gave you more than 2 citations, Turgeon fan. Do you have a question? You see how I'm acting way cooler than the way you're acting when I was cross-examining you? I hope you see that, brother.
Yeah, and that's my point. You spent 2 minutes, T-Fan. You had the page up. All you had to do is be like, all right, here it is. Instead, we wasted 2 minutes. I tell you what, if I was in your position, I'd be like, hey, I actually have the page up. I could share it with you right now. You didn't do that. And I've never seen you debate like that ever. I've never seen you treat any of your interlocutors like that. And that, to me, revealed either that's who you really are or that was just out of character. And for whatever reason, you're out of character. I don't know why. But the thing is this, is that I exposed your hypocrisy. For you to do what you did during that discussion, really showed me a lot about how you at least debate me. And so, I just, I got one more clip. We're going to go and take a look at it. This is where I think he doubles down. But the point is this, is he said 1 or 2. I proved to him that there was way more than 1 or 2. And I brought the receipts. And so I guess that wasn't good enough for him. So let's move on. Let's see what else he has to say. This will be the last of the Sirach debacle.
The other books. You'll notice that there was some emphasis on a few Jewish folks who did accept Sirach as though it were scripture, or who possibly conflated it with scripture as the way that, if you read the wording of that carefully, which is why I read it into the debate. If you read it carefully, they say clearly in that section, these are not canonical. But then they go on to say, well, some people in a few places, and there's a list of citations because there's so few places, you can list all of them that found that seemed to be using it like scripture. Just for Sirach, not for Baruch, not for Tobit, certainly not for Second Esdras.
Here's the thing. Well, then I'm showing you evidence clearly that Jews believe Sirach. There's 3 books we're debating. The fact that I can't do that for Tobit doesn't make my case for Tobit any less. It doesn't, because there's other areas that we can go into. But in regards to Sirach, okay, listen up. I want you to listen up. He said there's only one or two. I then showed him that there's more than one or two, but the way I got there was a little challenging. I had the page up. He claimed that he was waiting for me to pull it up, yet he had it up the whole time, or maybe soon after he asked me. But he had it up, and he read it. He basically showed his colors right there. I'm like, dude, what? Why? And I'm back in my mind. I'm thinking, man, that was not cool. That was totally uncalled for. And I essentially, my overall point was that many Jews did believe Sirach was inspired scripture, and I never said the majority believed it was scripture. Okay, I said many. Go back and rewind the tape. But here's the thing that you have to understand. One, I proved, okay, that it was more than two. I proved that there were several sources which matched what was said by Rabbi Hertz. And this is very important because, one, most Christians don't even know this. Okay, I would say on both sides don't even know this. And two, we are given this narrative of the Jews rejected books like Sirach. That's not true. Also, something that has to be known is that Rabbi Akiva instructed those to view those who read books like Sirach as people who would not enter the world to come. Why do you even have to tell anybody that? What's the point of saying that if no one already believes it's not scripture? And that's a whole other story. I highly recommend you go to Apocrypha Apocalypse and just type in Rabbi Akiva with a B or V, Rabiva, or other way around. But Rabbi Akiva, and you'll get a lot of information on Apocrypha Apocalypse on that subject. But that to me was all right. The tide has turned. That is where I took it away. And why? Because Sirach, okay, I demonstrated that Paul used it as scripture. I didn't go in deep at all. I didn't pull up my slides on that because at that point I'm like, he doesn't even know what 248 is. He hasn't demonstrated that he's well versed in this topic of looking at the scripture in Ephesians or Sirach. And I was like, you know what? Let's just move on to other areas. And we did. There was no empty spaces in this debate. I mean, it was 4 hours long, and that's a long debate. And I'm thankful for it. It was really great. But anyways, there's a few more things I want to add that were actually I don't have any clips to show you, but I want you to just stay with me just for a few more minutes, and hopefully you'll get something good out of this. But T-Fan, after the debate, he had a kind of like his own response video to some things I said in the debate. And one of them was about Whitgift and how I use Whitgift. So for those of you who don't know, Archbishop Whitgift was the Archbishop of Canterbury. He passed away, I believe, in 1604 February. And he was the one who crowned King James, the first of England, the sixth of Scotland. And the torch got passed to oh my goodness, I can't. I'm losing it. But anyways, I'll get that hopefully in a second. But anyways, he was the Archbishop during the Hampton Conference, though he was not there. From what I understand, he wasn't there. But this is an Archbishop who clearly believes that the Apocrypha is scripture. Okay. There's two. I'll actually share with you where I actually learned that from, and it's from the use of the Apocrypha in the Christian church, which I highly recommend. If you can't buy it, if you can't afford to spend $15 on Amazon, which I'm always a big believer in getting the hard copy if possible. Electronic copies are good if you want to do quick searches, but even sometimes you can't do that because of the way the font is. But either way, I think anyone that is interested in this topic, you must have this book. You must. And it was here that I learned about a gentleman by the name of Archbishop Whitgift and who he was and how important he was within the church. Obviously, he's Archbishop of the Church of England. And he believed that the Apocrypha slash Deuterocanon, but plus the books of 1 and 2 Esdras and Prayer Manassas were inspired scripture on the same level as all the other books that we traditionally would see as canonical. And that was huge when I learned that. And so I was like, okay, wow. Now, I brought up a quote in regards to Whitgift in an interaction with a gentleman with the last name of Traverse. And it was an interaction that I learned about through a blog post. But when I learned about it through the blog post, I always go look at the primary sources. And this blog post provides them. It's very good. So I do all that. I already check everything out. And so the thing that T-Fan was trying to say was that I was presenting Whitgift's belief about the Apocrypha not fully, and I was essentially managing my information skillfully. He didn't say that, but that's a term I'll use myself. And so ultimately is this, and I want to just let me see my check out my notes. Yeah, so one of the things I want to point out too. So in this book, Whitgift claims, or not Whitgift claims, Whitgift is said to clearly show that, teach that the Apocrypha is scripture. Okay, and Gary Machuda mentions it in his book here too. All right, so that's two sources. Obviously, this is the first source that mentions it, and Gary he loves this book too. But Gary brings this up in this book, and so I'm thinking, well, if T-Fan claims to have read this book, then he surely know what I'm talking about. But I didn't share what was shared in this book and Gary's book in regards to Whitgift. I did something else because I wanted to. I was like, well, I want to bring something new to the argument, assuming, maybe T-Fan already knows about, what Whitgift said and all that. I want to bring something new that I think is very important. And essentially, it was that, and what I shared is not in these books, but it goes like this, is that Whitgift, like I said, I was having a conversation with Traverse, and he was stating that the Apocrypha, and actually he didn't, well, actually, let me take a step back. In this book, in the use of the Apocrypha, it makes it clear that Whitgift was not pleased with that word. He's like, he didn't like that word used for it, Apocrypha. He didn't. That's hands down, he didn't. But in the source that I use, in the conversation I use with Whitgift and between Traverse, is that they were having a conversation about the Apocrypha and whether or not it's inspired. And the gist of it is that Whitgift said that it was, but then there was one part of that sentence that I left out in that conversation. And the reason why I left it out, okay, and it was in Turretin Fan, I'll show up on the screen for you, and I'll show it to you so you can see it, is that it, to me, wasn't relevant to the conversation. It just wasn't. And my point still stood, is that Whitgift believed that the Apocrypha was scripture. And I 100% knew that, and because of what I've read already in this book and what I've already read from the primary sources, because I always double check and validate anything if I bring it up in an argument. And the gist of it is this, is that Whitgift said that, yes, the Apocrypha is scripture, or the books that I'm referencing, but let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Give me a second. All right, so I'm sorry about that. So what was said is, and this can be found in the second part of a registry. I'll leave the reference for you to take. I'll take a screenshot and you can see it all. But on page 277, this is the conversation. This is where T-Fan was trying to say that I misled everyone. And this is here what Archbishop responds. He says, "Here the Archbishop answered that the Apocrypha were likewise given by inspiration from God." And that's where I stopped, because that's true. And that's relevant to the conversation, and I don't need to go any farther. That's it. But what is continued throughout this conversation, the conversation continues, like it keeps going. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here's what the rest of that statement goes. It says, as we're also, so let me read it again. So the Archbishop says the Apocrypha were likewise given by inspiration from God, as were also whatsoever the heathen had written well. And so someone will be like, you see there? That's, there you have it. And I'm thinking, like I was when I heard T-Fan, I was like, what's your point, dude? Like, okay, he thinks, like if you were just to be like, okay, he thinks the Apocrypha scripture and the Archbishop thinks the heathen is as well. Okay, so let me read that again because I want to make sure everyone gets this. Here the Archbishop answered that the Apocrypha were likewise given for inspiration from God, as were also whatsoever the heathen had written well. Now, this was recorded. It was a conversation that was recorded by somebody, like so many other conversations that we quote from and we talk about. Obviously, he did not pen that, and I don't think anyone that was listening to me that I implied in any way that those were actual Whitgift's words, because the way I used and cited was clearly, obviously, it was a conversation that was recorded between him and Traverse. And to question that conversation, I think is extreme, and I don't think there's any reason to believe, based upon also the other things he said about it in other works, in his own other works, personally, his own personal works, that is truly something that he would have said. But someone may ask, because we can admit he believed the Apocrypha was scripture, but I mean, as a side note, I think it was also a distraction. That was another thing too. If I quoted the rest of it about as far as the heathen goes, because to me it's like, doesn't matter. Like my argument is that that the Apocrypha is inspired according to Wycliffe. But here's the big thing right here, and I don't think Turretin fan will get this, but in regards to the heathen as well, is that the sibling oracles were also deemed, especially during this time, before and even after, as writings from the heathens that were like their own scripture. Okay? Now, is that what he means? We don't know. We don't know exactly what he meant by that second part of that phrase. Okay? We don't. But the thing is that it is a fact that during his time, before and after, there were those who thought that the heathens had their, what you could call their scriptures, if you will, the way God gave them information through the sibling oracles. Okay, dude, bringing that up in a debate is, I think, irrelevant. I think it's a distraction. I don't think there's any point in it. And so, I mean, that's it. That's my long answer to what I said about Wycliffe, but I didn't take him out of context. I check all my sources. I already knew that in advance. I didn't misquote anybody. I didn't misrepresent anyone. And the thing is, if T-Fan actually knew what was already said in other works and about Wycliffe, and I already presented to them prior to this debate, I don't think that would have been an issue. But for whatever reason, he thought that he had a win right there, but he didn't. Kind of like how he thought he had a win with Coverdale, which he clearly didn't. But anyways, just two more things real quick I want to bring up before we close. The Hebrew and the Greek preservation theory, that one was wild for him to bring up. One, I thought he misused the Matthew verse about not one or jot or tittle. One, Matthew, when he was talking about this, when Jesus brought this up, it was talking about the law of Moses. So, I mean, I think T-Fan completely misused that verse. He also couldn't provide me any evidence for his position. The closest I found to his position was the Synod of Dort. Like, that was the closest. So, T-Fan, let me know if that's what if you read the Synod of Dort, and if that's something that has influenced your position in regards to only the Hebrew and Greek must, or let me know if we don't have a complete Hebrew copy of Sirach, then Sirach cannot be inspired scripture. That's the gist of what T-Fan believes, which to me is crazy. Because one has to realize that Matthew and Hebrews were written in Hebrew first, 100%. And I have historical support for that too. I have some internal support, and that what I just stated right there is shouldn't be surprised to at least that many people believe that now, and long time ago in early Christianity. So That's something that is big too. Lastly, one of the questions that was brought up, and by the way, most of the questions were directed towards me. Really good. All of them super chat questions. Love seeing that Standing for Truth got a lot of support. That's pretty cool. But pretty about, I think there was like 15 questions, like 13 of them or 12 of them, or at least were all directed at me, which is great. I love being asked questions. But in regards to 2 Esdras, I made it very clear that, and I'll show you the question and my answer. So check it out real quick.
Thank you, gentlemen. Born Again RN, $5 super chat for David. How do you respond to Tobit and Second Esdras found in miniature codices indicating private use and not scripture?
Yeah, this is the problem with Steve. He doesn't know anything what he's talking about. He just like when he said there was the official King James Bible website. I remember, I'll never forget that in the debate. It was like I was like, what in the world? Like, is this guy really serious? That's how he thinks. He thinks his question is not even true. It's a loaded question. How do you respond to Tobit 2 Esdras found in a miniature codex indicating private use and not scripture? That's, at the end of the day, I will just say this. I don't agree with the basis of your question. Just like I don't agree with how you claimed that Tobit within the Dead Sea Scrolls was not considered scripture based upon this. Go back and check the video and watch what you did. When in fact, when you look at Tobit was surrounded by other Dead Sea manuscripts that clearly whoever wrote those manuscripts treated them as scripture.
Turretin fan?
I guess we could roll the tape back to see if I mentioned when I was asked whether I got information from the net's introduction to Sirach, but I'm pretty sure that I did say that. But if I didn't, I apologize to the viewers. Feel free to find out more discussion about that GK2 recension in the introduction to Sirach. As far as Steve's question, I also noticed that in his response to the questioner, instead of just answering the question, it's, oh no, the person who's asking the question doesn't know what they're talking about. Oh, Turretin fan doesn't know what he's talking about. Just a bunch of malarkey that's not actually addressing the questions that are being presented. And the question is, how do you address the miniature codices that present these books? And the argument behind the question is that these miniature codices are an indication that these books are circulating separated from the canonical scriptures. In other words, there's independent interest in having a copy of Tobit, but not necessarily of having it as a part of the Old Testament or the Bible as a whole. And so that's the argument behind this question. And I would be interested in an actual answer as to why this is not evidence against their canonicity and reception, as opposed to just kind of a general criticism of the person asking the question.
So the question, okay, is a loaded question. And here's the thing, is that even if the question was accurate, okay, you have to remember what I said about Apocrypha. Okay, I already made it very clear that even from William Winston, and even when you go back and you look at early Protestants and even early church fathers, their understanding of even books like 2 Esdras, okay, is clearly that this was considered concealed or apocryphal. And that's why I brought up William Winston. So if the book was set aside, okay, but my question would be, how did they treat the book of Revelation? I mean, there's so many other questions. So at the end of the day, it's not what you say, Steve, it's what you don't say. And for someone like myself who has a lot of experience with Steve, I've always known one thing: you got to double check, cross check, triple check everything that guy says.
And so the reason why I responded that way for that question was because if you look at this quote, take a look at it, you'll see clearly that it doesn't match what Steve Christie is trying to say. Okay, so come back to me. So here's the gist of it all: is that Steve was trying to say that these books, if they're found in the miniature codex format, like 2 Esdras, for example, that this means that they were just for liturgical purposes and they weren't to be viewed as scripture. Yet what he leaves out in that little tiny footnote that I just showed you is that other, what traditionally everyone would agree, all right, on both sides, that are inspired scripture, were also found in a mini codex form. So this was a clear example of, like, you got to double, triple check everything that comes out of Steve's mouth, 100%. And there it is. I just showed you. So I just, I already knew that. All right. So there you have it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope this helped many of you out there. This is long overdue for sure. My goal is to get past this. This was a lot. There was a lot. I mean, my notes that I just went over, I finished them about a month and a half ago. There was so much going on, and really, it's just really hard. This is pretty complicated for me because there's just so many topics. There's a lot of editing going on. We're talking about 4 hours. We're talking about, like, going through and clipping everything. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, I enjoy it, but 4-hour long debate and trying to break it down and, be totally ready and edit and show everyone and have all the clips ready. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. So I am, part of me is definitely a perfectionist. So sorry if it's taking this long, but here it is. This is my my response to is the Apocrypha scripture. So with that, everyone, God bless, and be sure to leave a comment and let's get this conversation going. All right, peace out. Later.